The goal for the Empire this offseason was to bring back as many players from that undefeated AUDL championship team as possible. And that included the two players that have been around since the Empire's beginning 10 years ago, in Matt Cat Stevens and Mike Drost, as well as a 9-year veteran in Ryan Drost. Of course, with Cat's role in the organization, it was almost assured that he'd be back, albeit in maybe a smaller role on the field, because he does have a career average in goals per season of 32, and that was down all the way to 18 last year as he played the second most D points of his entire career. For the Drosts, however, it would have been totally fair if the 33-year-olds, who will be 34 on August 6th, decided that they together wanted to walk away into the sunset as a leading block getter in AUDL history. Mike's got 191, and second on that list with Ryan's 183. They've been on record a number of times saying that they'd walk away when the other one walks away. So the real question is, which brother is going to walk away first? Well, at least for 2023, no walking has been done just yet. However, with life being the way it is, whether it's wedding planning or law school, it does feel like there might be a little less, and I mean a little less Drost than normal. And not to immediately contradict myself, but if there is any two gentlemen that I could say might be able to juggle high-level ultimate with high-level life, it's those two. But hypothetically speaking, if the Drosts did take even a slight step back this year, whether that's father time finally saying it's time to maybe, I don't know, stop eating so much candy, or it is Google Calendar saying life really is truly getting in the way of being available for every game this season, that means that we should probably give our best effort to try to figure out who might fill some of those minutes and those very, very big shoes. Of course, there are also others to replace. There are 8 players from that undefeated season last year who did not return. Most notably, Jabron Meeser, whose lockdown defense is certainly going to be missed this season. But here we're talking strictly about the Drosts, and if the case does come that someone does need to step in for a few games at least, to those shoes that the Drosts normally fill, which is primarily playing a ton of important D points. To me, that production comes down to 4 players, 2 returning from a season ago, and 2 returning to the Empire after a little bit of time off. First up, we have to talk about Josue Aloro. They were awesome in Colombia down in TEP, arguably maybe the Empire's best handler defender throughout that entire tournament, and I expect them to continue to make good decisions on the disc, being one of those D-line handlers. Remember, last season co-head coaches Anthony Nunez and Charlie Hoppes decided to have, handler Mike decide to throw his hat in the ring, and that does mean there could be some handler reps available on those D-lines. And that's actually for Josue Aloro, even if Mike Drost is around, you expect that he might go back to a cutter role because there are so many high-level D-line handlers now in the Empire. Potentially joining them as a D-line handler, but who could also maybe sprinkle in sometimes an O-line handler, is Oliver Chartok, who I would mark down on your sheet to have a much bigger role this season. Elliot's younger brother really came into his own in the second part of last season, and we saw at Club Nationals with Exist, the mixed team from New York, oddly enough alongside the Drosts, Oliver Chartok really took center stage, and I would expect a lot more from the Dartmouth product this season. Without the Drosts, who do usually pull the individual matchups of the top 3 offensive weapons on the other team. So that means that there has to be some pretty elite man-to-man defenders ready to step up. Because what makes Ryan Drost an Empire legend isn't just the fact that he's made so many blocks, the same thing with Mike. It's the timing of which he's made those blocks, and I think more impressively, the consistency with which Ryan Drost has made those blocks over the last 9 years. There is no one on the current roster that can make up 7 or 8 years of blocks overnight, but in his 3rd season with the Empire, Matt Labar, who is still a college student, is coming into his own, and he was exceptional down at TEP as well, which is that really good preseason example that I can point to as who may have taken that step up in the offseason, and Matt Labar was really impressing down there. Just judging from TEP and what we saw from the last 2 seasons, in those defensive transition sets, I expect him to be particularly dangerous running alongside the Gazelles of the Yachts, the Antoines, and the Marquez. In a similar way, I do expect the returning Angelo Olchese to also use his, I think, surprising hops. Well, not surprising to Empire fans, but I think other teams don't do their homework enough on a player like Angelo, and he's definitely surprised some people on a poster before in the past, and I think he could be a real X factor this season on those D-lines. Now, this is all a bit preempted because I went to practice the other night, and I can tell you that the Drost brothers are both looking not 33, but still 23 and eating candy and looking just fine. So who knows what the future might hold, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a contingency plan for what if life does come their way a little bit more than they expect this season. So thanks so much. This is going to kick off an entire week, that being Monday through Friday, of these little preseason teasers I have for you about the big storylines of the Empire before that home opener on Saturday against the Philadelphia Phoenix. So make sure you either get those season tickets or the season pass. We'll see you up in New Rochelle.